I have a love-hate relationship with social media because I know that sometimes it can be not healthy, but that has been something that has really it's been a huge driver for me. And I've been able to share a lot of good information. And plus you're able to be creative too. And it's been a good creative outlet for me. I can be a little silly, but also provide some good education too.
If you're comfortable, you're not growing. We are live for another episode of Dental Marketing Theory. Thanks so much for tuning in. Before we go any further, you know what I'm going to ask you to do. Go leave a review. We have thousands of listeners and only 50 reviews. It's embarrassing. Please help me out. I really need it. Thank you so much. I don't even care if you leave a bad review. Just go say something. Give me a thumbs up. Give me a thumbs down or anything. It takes you about 3 seconds. So please, 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 please go do that. And today we have a great conversation. I actually met Stephanie Botts, and she's from PosturePros, and how we met was she was watching our either show online or we were communicating on social media, and then we bumped in at an event. And I wanted to be the first question I was going to ask you, but I'm actually going to change it. So Stephanie, here's something about me that's about posture, and posture is really, really important. But I walk all day on a treadmill. I don't sit. Literally, my desk right now, I'm standing, and I do not sit all day. Is that good or bad?
I would say as long as you're, first of all, I'm impressed with the coordination. I don't think that I could do that. But I would say that you're moving. That's the most important part. So if you're standing and you're moving, I think that's great. If you were just standing statically, that probably wouldn't be as good for you, but I think it's great.
I heard sitting's like the new cancer. Is that true?
Yeah, it's, I know, I hear that too. It is actually, I mean, when we're sitting down, it's a very unnatural position for us. And it's not what our body is designed for. We're designed to move, like what you're doing with your treadmill. We're not designed to sit still. And that's why so many people end up in pain.
Yeah. And then people have the cell phone thing too. And I know this is a little separate from just like the dental thing, but like I can feel it in my neck at times where I'm like, oh man, why am I like that? I need to like roll my shoulders back. That's a thing too, right?
Oh, it's huge. I'm always tempted when I'm at the airport because I travel all the time now. And at the gate, people are hunched over their phones. And I just want to do like this pan and just watch everyone because it's crazy. And us in dentistry, that's kind of what we're used to, being hunched over and forward. But now we're seeing it with everyone because of cell phones.
Okay, so why should anybody care about posture in dentistry? I'll be honest with you. I never really thought about it or gave it any second thought, but I'm not a dentist. I've never worked in it, but I have noticed, I've always wondered, like, why do they have shorter work weeks? Or why are they always like, man, I can only work this many hours with my body? It doesn't seem hard, right? Like, it's not like they're out there with a jackhammer or they're, with a shovel or something like that we would naturally go, that's hard. So why should people care about posture?
Yeah, it's posture. Posture is huge. It really is. And I appreciate the question. It's our foundation as human beings. I mean, our skeleton is stacked on top of itself in a certain way. Our muscles are designed a certain way, and we have to walk around and resist gravity. And I think a lot of us forget about gravity, but it's this constant force that's pulling us down. And so we really need to watch our posture. I tell people you want to allow your bones to hold you up, not your soft tissue. And when we're not in a healthy posture, that's when our soft tissue really is doing a job it's not designed for. And that's when people get injured. But in dentistry, I mean, I think probably all dentists have their own reasons for working shorter weeks. They do. Now that I'm on the business side of dentistry, I'm very sympathetic to what dentists have to deal with every day. Me, when I was just a I don't want to say just a clinical hygienist, but when I was just clinical, I wasn't attuned to everything that the dentist has to deal with. And there's so much. So I don't blame them at all for working shorter weeks.
So what is the deal? What happens to a dentist if they don't focus on their posture?
Well, if they're in this chronically forward, hunched over posture, our bodies are very adaptive. And if we're forcing our body to be in this unnatural posture, our body will start to lay down tissue to hold us in this hunched over posture to where even if we wanted to stand up straight, we wouldn't be able to anymore. And again, it's really forcing our body into a position that it's just not meant for. And that's why there's so much injury in dentistry.
Got it. So do you know some statistics around the injury rate? What compared to other industries?
Well, I would say dentistry, whether in any position we hold, dentist, hygienist, assistant, we're amongst one of the highest risk professions for musculoskeletal disorders, things like carpal tunnel and like low back injuries, rotator cuff injury. And it almost doesn't sound like that big of a deal, but these are the injuries that take us out because our
Mm.
bodies, our jobs in dentistry are so demanding physically that if our body's not ready for it, we just can't do it.
Well,
I know there's a statistic out there that I talk about in my lectures that a dentist would have about a 50% chance of early retirement because their body can't deal with the profession. And that's scary when you think of the investment that people make
how
when they
early
go
are
to
you
dental
talking
school,
about? Are we talking
like
years
10,
or?
20 years.
Oh man, that's
Yeah,
like major. That's like probably the
it's
sweet spot of
huge,
your earning potential too, right? Like you, where you're getting fast and getting more, being able to see more patients and getting
right?
better at your craft. So yeah, that's really scary. So what is this something that doctors are like very aware of and they work on it, or is it one of those things like the phone thing, like nobody really thinks about it?
I think people are aware that it's a problem and they are aware that they can feel it. They can feel that they don't feel well after their day, but what's the solution? And I think that's been
Mm.
the missing piece is there hasn't been a good solution. And if you look at the equipment, even in the last 20 years that's been marketed as dental ergonomic equipment, there has been some great equipment out there, but we still are injured and the rates of disability and injury aren't getting better. And it's my belief that's because of we need to change our behavior. It's not all just about equipment. We really need to be aware of what we're doing when we're in the operatory.
So what are some of the injuries as they like play out with the dentist? Like how does that impact the rest of their life? Or is it that they have to slow down usually, or is it like other stuff that it's impacting?
Yeah. So the statistic that I was talking about, the 50% chance of early retirement, that's for people that actually filed disability claims. If we're talking about the people who haven't filed a claim that maybe are dropping days, maybe they go from 5 days to 4, then to 3, then to 2, that's still a significant impact on their financial situation and the health of their practice, even if they're not like quote unquote going on disability. But I would say, and I can speak from experience too, when you're in pain, it affects every aspect of your life. It's like you go from not thinking about pain ever because you're not in pain to it hitting you like a ton of bricks and that's all you think about. And it's really hard to be present in your professional life but also your personal life when you're in pain.
So you said it's a higher rate of injury in dental earlier. Is why is that? Is it because you're working in such a much smaller space?
There's a lot of risk factors that we have in dentistry. So when we're talking about ergonomics, there's 5 different risk factors across all professions that put people at risk for an ergonomic injury. Typically, professions maybe have 1 or 2 of these. In dentistry, we have every single one of them. So
Mm.
that's why we get so injured. Plus, I always call it my unofficial risk factor is we don't have time to rest. In dentistry, we don't have time to take breaks in between patients. Our schedules are insane, especially since COVID. We're having to cram so many patients in that's when our body recovers is when it's able to rest. And so if we're in a profession that is put like throwing all of these risk factors against us and then we don't have time to rest, I mean, that's a recipe for not a healthy person.
Yeah, agreed. And the other thing I was going to ask you is this: is there any relation between like the high suicide rate in dental, and this in pain and injury? Like, are those things correlated or not?
I haven't seen studies that have a direct correlation between that. However, so I speak on ergonomics quite a bit. Another topic I talk about is substance use disorder and chemical
Mm.
dependency. There is with us in dentistry, we have very high rates, especially since COVID, of anxiety and depression, and the suicide rates have been going up for everyone, and dentistry is included. But if you
Mm.
think about it, if you're in pain, a lot of people tend to self-medicate with various substances, and then that can start them on the road to maybe becoming dependent on something and then developing an issue.
That was my next question. Yeah, is the pain level of pain that you have to go and get pain medication for the painkillers, and those are
Yep.
extremely addictive. And
Yep.
so but that also it doesn't help your mental health either. And so now you're in
No, it
severe
doesn't.
pain, and yeah, I could see the spiral how that I'm sure they're I'm sure they're related in some way. So how do you help? So I'm a dentist, I'm in pain, or maybe I'm a DSO and I know my dentists are not doing the things that they need to be doing, or we could get better in the area of ergonomics. How do you come in and support that?
Yeah, so I've got a few different avenues that I can help with. I do a lot of lecturing, and I do office presentations where it's basically a condensed form of like my formal CE courses. That can be very beneficial for people. But then I also do assessments, and you can think of me as like a personal trainer, but for the operatory. So I'm watching your form, I'm taking photos, I'm taking notes, I'm building a report for you. And this is all while they're working on patients. This isn't just me telling them you need to stand up straight. Like, I'm figuring out how they can make their personal operatory work for them based off of their habits. And then I'm able to coach them and gently correct them. I'm not yelling at people or anything in the operatory, but I'm helping. I know,
pulling their shoulders back and
hitting them
like a mom, you know what I mean? With the little
yeah.
kid, like, get your chin up.
Right. But then I'm able to like offer some corrections and maybe equipment recommendations or reorganizing the operatory, whatever they need.
Okay. And then, so you're going in there, so it's very hands-on because
Yeah.
am I under the right assumption that this is different for everybody?
It is. It's very individualized because everyone has their own little unique quirks. And especially if they're in an operatory,
so they might be doing it with their elbow up. One person might have their elbow up, or one person might be too tucked in, or somebody might have their chin up too high or too low. Is that what you're talking about?
Or like reaching, like I'm like, oh, they're a reacher, or oh, they're a huncher,
and that does in the wrong position, that's going to stretch you out in the wrong way, and
it's huge. Yeah.
And then what do you do? Do you go in and help them correct the posture? Do you give them tools to correct the posture, or do you give them exercises to become stronger to support the posture? Do you kind of do everything?
I do try to stay in my lane. I'm not a personal trainer. I'm not like a body expert. Jacks. No. So I don't. I mean, I have some stretches, some chair side stretches that I recommend for people. But if someone, like, for example, if someone comes to me and they have that severe forward head posture where they're just stuck in it, I'm not equipped to help them with that. But I do have people that I refer them to. But what I'm really good at is identifying the risk factors in the operatory. I'm able to see what it is exactly that you're doing, and then we can correct that.
So who do you refer them to if they have like a neck problem, like what you were saying? Like, what kind of person helps with that?
It depends on how bad it is, and it also depends on how motivated they are. If they're not willing to maybe, I have a personal trainer that I recommend a lot of people to, but if the person's really like, I'm not going to do exercises, I'm not going to do this and that, then that kind of limits who I can refer them to. But sometimes I'll refer to PT, sometimes it's a chiropractor, sometimes it's a posture therapist. It just kind of depends.
Sports therapist? Do sports therapists ever get involved?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it just depends on the person and their motivation, and then also how bad the injury is. But I'm much more on the preventive side. I mean, I'm a hygienist, and so it's like someone can't really come to me and want me to crown their tooth. I'm not equipped to do that. I would refer to a dentist, and it's kind of the same thing. Yeah.
How much of what you're dealing with can be prevented by just strengthening? So like if I go out and I work out and I'm straining my body every day and I have good posture as I work out, I'm doing the things, I'm deadlifting and I'm doing shoulder presses and I'm like strengthening the muscles. How much does that then help when I'm in maybe not the best posture, because dental is going to put you in those awkward spots anyways? How much does that come into play?
Well, that's a great question. So in dentistry, we're prone to these pretty severe muscle imbalances. Like, for example, our chest is extremely short and tight, and it's pulling our shoulders forward. So for us, if we have that kind of imbalance, probably chest presses or bench presses aren't going to be the best for us. If we have typically we have pretty dysfunctional traps. And so overhead movements probably aren't going to be best for us. So we do have to kind of know the muscles that we're prone to overusing, and don't do that at the gym. Like my chest doesn't need any extra work at the gym. It's tight enough,
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. That's really interesting. It's like, I remember I would go snowboarding and, a couple times a year, and then the muscles in my legs would just be shot. Even though my legs were conditioned, I walked or I ran or I exercised, I squatted, did all the things. But then you go snowboarding because you're using muscles that you don't normally use.
Yeah.
So knowing, and I have no idea how to exercise those muscles. You know what I mean? Like I could never
Yeah.
figure
Just
out how
snowboard.
to. Yeah, just snowboard is the only way that I know that. Like, okay, well, that's really weird that I'm sore in those spots of my legs. I've never been sore like that before. So I guess dental is no different. And then
Yeah.
how is your so as you come in and you work with these offices, like what's the biggest difference between like a dentist, a hygienist, and a dental assistant, or even if you're working with front desk people or administrative folks, how are you dealing with that? Like, what's the difference between those? And I know that everybody's different, but like, is there common things with each of those?
Yeah, there is. So like and yes, everyone's different, but I would say generally dental assistants, because of their chairs that they use and because of their positioning, they're in this constant twisted position. They're just chronically twisted, which twisting is one of the big no-nos for ergonomics. So they typically have a pretty high incidence of low back pain. Hygienists, for the most part, are pretty high in neck pain. And then for dentists, it seems to be neck and shoulder pain.
And what about like front desk people? Do you deal with that, or is that not as big
Yeah,
of
I
an issue?
do. So yeah, I do. I made sure to get certified in office workers as well because I wanted to make sure that I could work with people at the front desk. And I would say for them, most of the time it's the neck. It's really tight neck because they're looking down at their computer. A lot of times it's simply just elevating their
Yeah.
equipment so that they can keep their head straight, so they're not tipping their head down.
So yeah, when I have a standing desk because I'm standing all the time, and
Hmm.
what I found interesting was for the computers to work, the top of the computers need to be eye line for standing. When you're standing, top of the computers need to be aligned with your eyes. Mine are a little bit above that because I need to get my camera placed right and all that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
that made a huge difference. Like when I put my computer up just like an inch or two, and I was all of a sudden I have these piercing like back pains, and it was quick too. It wasn't like it
Yeah.
was weeks and weeks and weeks of it. It was just from having my head just a little bit out of its natural position. So I can only imagine the what you're able to do and come in and support people with when you're working with these offices. Like how did you get involved with it? Like how you were a hygienist? Did you just have
Mhm.
problems and you started self-diagnosing, or how did you start working through that?
Yeah, no, exactly. I started learning about ergonomics because of myself, because I got to the point where I was, missing a ton of work. My personal life, my mental health was going down the toilet because I was in pain all the time. And so I decided to figure out ergonomics. I honestly, I was thinking about leaving dentistry, but I didn't want to do that. So
Wow.
I started to learn about ergonomics, and it's ergonomics, just what you were saying. It's these small, tiny little changes. It's not rocket science at all.
Yeah.
But once I started making those changes, I felt so much better, and it's just a light bulb went off, and I was
So
like, I'm
like
not the only
so
one.
what'd you do? So you're like you were clueless about ergonomics. So you just knew
Pretty much.
your neck was in pain, basically, in your neck and back.
My entire body. Yeah. It
Oh,
was
okay.
it was from my neck down to my low back and my hips. And
Okay,
that's
so
because I was twisting all the time. It's because my patient was up way too high. I
mm,
was reaching. I was doing everything wrong. And so that's actually been a very good tool for me because I have made all of the mistakes. And so I'm able to, to help people hopefully not do those.
so walk me through that then. So you're in pain, you're doing everything wrong, and then you're ready to like, I'm done. If this is how dentistry feels, I'm not going to keep doing this.
Yeah.
What was the first thing that you did to go fix that?
I was like, okay, I'm going to start learning a bit about ergonomics. I wanted to start first with my patient positioning because I knew that I was wrong and it was so uncomfortable when I was working on my patients. So I just started. There's not a whole lot of research out there, unfortunately. There's some, but not a whole lot. So I started reading some studies, and I found this one study talking about the optimal position for the maxillary and mandibular occlusal planes. And so I started playing with that with my patients.
So what
And
does that
it
mean
was
to somebody like me? You just whatever you just said.
Oh,
I've heard those
I'm
words
sorry.
before. No, 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 no. It's
Okay.
good, but probably a lot of the audience probably knows what that means, but I don't. And there's probably might be some others that don't. Could you explain that?
Yeah. So the upper teeth, the maxillary teeth, if you think of the arch of them, you need them oriented in a certain position in space for us to not have to lean forward and reach and
Mm,
all of that. And then the lower teeth, same, but it's much different. So to put it simply, for the upper arch, you need the chin raised way up towards the ceiling. For the lower arch, the patient's chin needs to be nodded down towards their chest. So
that makes
there's
so
that
much sense.
positioning. There's also the height of the patient chair. And so I just started making these small changes, and I was like, oh my God, this is so much more comfortable. And I was in less pain. I mean, my pain, I have an injury. And so my pain, it's never completely gone, but it's gotten so much better to where, my quality of life certainly isn't suffering anymore.
Okay, so you figured all that out from Google basically so far?
From like research studies, there's
Yeah.
also a physical therapist who she's not like in dental, but she's done
Hmm.
a lot of research for people in dentistry. So I learned a lot from her. She has a book. I read her book, and I just started making these changes, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like life changing. And
So
so
it's
I
like way
just,
better. So you just applied
yeah.
those things. So totally self-educated. You started
Hmm.
applying them. They started to work. And then how did you jump over to being like, you know what, I'm just going to do this full time, or really make this my passion, and not do the hygiene as much?
Yeah, so I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. And it was weird, Gary. I don't know if you've experienced this being an entrepreneur too, but it was almost not even a thought. It
Yeah.
appeared in my head. I was like, okay, I'm doing this. So I went and got certified in ergonomics, but there isn't a dental ergonomic certification. It doesn't
Mm,
exist.
yeah.
So the ergonomic training I got was more geared towards people who work in a factory, or office workers, or warehouse,
So
workers.
you had to adjust it
So
a little bit.
I did, but what I had to do was take that knowledge, and it was a great foundation for me. But I had to start doing a lot of field work. And so I observed dentists, I observed specialists, hygienists, assistants, people at the front office, to figure out what the common themes were and how I can help them. For hygienists, I was pretty, just because of my experience, I pretty
Yeah.
much knew, the issues, but I didn't know about dentists and assistants in front office. So it was a lot of research that I had, just a lot of sitting and watching and playing around with them. They were very patient with me, which I appreciate. And then I developed my program from there.
Got it. And then how long did that take to develop? Like from when you said, okay, I'm going to actually go for this and get my license, or get my certification, I should say, to, okay, now I'm going to start, people are going to pay me money to help them fix this problem. What was the timeline on that?
I would say it was probably about 3 months or so of research of me, watching people, and I dropped down to part time. I was working full time. I dropped 2 days. Just had to dip into my savings to kind of support myself, and observed people a lot every week, hours a day, and then I just developed my program after that.
That's so cool. It's really,
And
really
then
cool.
I've
It's a cool
tweaked it.
What was that?
I've tweaked it. My program is much different now than what it was when I first started it, because of what I've learned along the way. But the feedback and the results that I've gotten from my clients, it makes me think that I think I'm on the right direction. I'm on the right track.
So tell me a little bit about that. Like, someone comes to you, they're like, I'm in pain. You're the lady that helps me get out of pain. Well, first of all, is there other people out there that are focused on dental, or or is there a couple other, like, I haven't
No,
seen
there's a
anybody else
handful
really.
of us. Yeah,
Okay.
there's not a lot, which is crazy, to me, because of how much we need it. So
Yeah.
there's a handful of us, but really not too much. I'm hoping that will change in the future. That there's going to
Got
be
it.
more. Yeah.
Yeah. More
But
awareness
yeah,
around it.
yeah, totally. And there's more people talking about it now. You hear a lot of talk about burnout and mental health, which I think it's sometimes it can be uncomfortable to talk about those things, but it's so necessary because most of us are struggling with that at some point.
Well,
But
yeah,
if someone,
you can't have good mental health if your body is like
no,
breaking apart, right? Like, you could be the strongest willed person, but that can really break you really quickly.
yeah, yeah, mental health is huge. And I'm really glad that we're starting to talk about it more. So hopefully people can start getting the help that they need. But if someone is in pain, they'll reach out to me. I come in, do an assessment. I just kind of watch them. And that gives me a good idea as far as what they're doing and how I can help them. But again, it's like, okay, have the patient turn their head to the right a little bit. And sometimes
Mm.
that's all. It's like so simple, but it's not really stuff that you think about when you're working because you're focused on the patient and
You
you're just
trained your
trying to
body.
get
Yeah.
through.
And I imagine too, like with sports, at least I understand, like, you train your body to do something over and over and over again, even though it might not be the right way to do it. Your
Yeah.
body is trained to move like that. It's trained to move up and down or left and right. And so if you've been doing something for like 20 years the wrong way, your body's just used to moving that way. So I imagine, even though it's just a minor tweak, like, don't reach that far, you still have to untrain your body, because it's not like you're thinking about it as you do it, right?
Right. No, it's totally automatic. And it's like we almost become comfortable in our discomfort, right? We know that it's not good for us, but that's what we know. And sometimes too, people will, because they're using their body in a different way, they'll become more sore temporarily after.
Mm.
But I just have to tell them, like, it's okay. You're using these different muscles. It's fine. And then it goes away and they feel a lot better.
Ah, that's interesting. So they're more sore because it's kind of like when you get a massage, right? So you feel fine, you go to get a massage, and then you feel kind of worse afterwards. But then it's
Yeah. You're like,
because
wait,
you
what
just got
happened?
yeah, you got all those muscles that had stuff built up in them, and you kind of released it. And then the next day or the following day, you end up feeling better and a little more relaxed. That's very, very interesting. So
Yeah.
you also have like free some free courses you said too? Is that right?
Yeah, so I just well, I didn't just, it's been a few months now, but I created a free operator positioning course that goes over like how to adjust your stool and different clock positions depending on where you're at in the mouth. Standing, I recommend a lot of standing dentistry, and so I go over that as well. And I'm working on creating a comprehensive ergonomics course, but like things take way longer than you ever think that they will. So I'm hoping that I'll be done with that before the end of the year, but we'll see.
That's awesome. And then you have some pretty good social media posts as well. It's kind of an easy thing to post about, right?
It is, yeah, and it's been really fun. It's social media. I have a love-hate relationship with social media because I know that sometimes it can be not healthy, but that has been something that has really like it's been a huge driver for me, and I've been able to share a lot of good information, and plus you're able to be creative too, and it's been a good creative outlet for me. I can be a little silly, but also provide some good education too.
Well, yeah, and you're in bad posture form every time you're creating a TikTok, I'm sure, or
Yeah, right.
Instagram reel. What has
Yep.
been the most popular platform for you from a like a lead generation standpoint to help you grow your business?
I would say Instagram. That's probably been
Yeah.
the biggest one for me. Yeah. Because a lot of what I do is video, and some of the other platforms aren't as video friendly as Instagram is. And
Yeah.
that's been great for me.
That's awesome. So dentist or hygienist see you on there and they call you and say, "Hey, I like your videos. Can you help me?" Or how does that work?
Yeah. Or like associations, dental or hygiene associations will see that I posted something about me speaking, and then they want me to come and speak. Facebook,
Oh,
I would say too, Facebook has also been pretty good as far as some of the groups that I post in. I've gotten some leads from there as well, some of the dental groups.
yeah, it's really cool. You have like 6,000 followers on Instagram, and again, you have some really good videos on there. Some of them 17,000 views, which for some industry, or you got one with 46,000 views. For some industries, it's like, oh, that's normal. But you're so niche, right? Like no one's.
Yes.
That's the part that I don't think people understand about marketing B2B inside of dental is that like our audience is really really small, and it's usually boring. The content that we're creating is usually boring to most people, but so
Yeah.
making it interesting like you have is really impressive.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. It is very niche. It's very small. But I've posted some things that are like funny for people in dentistry, not so funny for people on the patient side. And so I've gotten some heat from that, but
It's
that's
very tricky
okay.
though, right? Yeah,
It
because
is. Yeah.
it's tricky when you're B2B rather than B2C, but then it's like you're kind of sharing the how the sausage is made, so to speak, and it can cause problems.
Yeah. And patients don't understand that. And I'm like, okay, I got to maybe watch, how I word things, I guess, because I certainly don't want, patients to have a certain view of people in dentistry. I don't want to contribute to any of that. So.
Yeah, that's so interesting. What's gotten you the most heat? Like what's caused the most problems with patients?
Yeah, well, I have a video on there. I had to turn off the commenting actually on Instagram. So it was about removing stain, and stain. Any hygienist knows what I'm talking about. Stain is like the bane of our existence. It's very difficult to remove, and so I made what I thought was a funny video about removing stain. And then the patient immediately goes after and like smokes a cigarette or drinks some coffee, and then we're like, oh my god, and oh my gosh, I got so much heat for that. I just had to shut it down.
What'd they say? Like, what were people? How can you argue with that? It is. I mean, it's true. Like, people are dumb, right? Make my teeth white, but I want to smoke and chug down every kind of sugary drink. How does that? Like, what can
Oh
you say to
yeah,
that?
they were just like, "Oh, this is your job, you're paid for this. Why are you complaining about it?" And it's people like you that make people like me scared to come to the dentist because you make fun of us. And I'm like, "Okay, this is not what I meant at all."
Was that your most popular video?
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
It
Sometimes
was a popular one, but
it's interesting. I see one here for like 200,000. It's interesting because yeah, sometimes you get rewarded for that kind of polarizing content, right? And
yeah,
it's like sometimes and I think that's the unhealthy part of social media is that you get these positive feedback loops of views, likes, shares, and so you get trained to like that, and you're like,
yeah,
yes, I want more of that, so I'm going to keep following that. And then something negative happens, probably isn't the best, but it's kind of in the back of your head. You're like, well, any news is good news, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
kind
And it's
of.
like,
Yes,
yeah, and then you have to really balance that. You have to figure that out. And dentistry is not a polarizing industry. So in other industries, you can just go in and talk. These people are dumb, and I disagree with them, and I don't like them. Dentistry doesn't do that to each other publicly. Behind the scenes, yes, but
yes,
publicly,
right.
people do not trash each other at all.
Yeah. Yeah,
Very
it's
interesting.
tricky. It's a balance too, and I've noticed too, because I mean, overwhelmingly the responses are positive, right?
Yeah.
But it just takes one negative comment, and then it's like the snowball, and then everyone starts saying negative stuff. And me, like, I really value my mental health, and I'm more of a sensitive person, and I'm just like, okay, I'm just gonna stop this. I can't do this.
Thank you for being honest, right? Because we always are like toughen up, but it's like it's hard when you have hundreds of people coming at you, attacking you,
Yeah.
and even sometimes threatening you, and you're not used to that. Like you've never been in that before. I'll tell a story. One time I had I made a post. It was a very entrepreneurial like post, and somehow it got picked up by a bunch of socialists. Like on TikTok, there's like a pretty big socialist like college younger kid movement, and it blew up. Like the video blew up. Like it had like 400,000 views or something crazy
Oh my
like that.
gosh.
But not for the right reasons. I was arguing with socialists for over something that I was like, what, this isn't even like, what am I doing? Like, I would never do this in real life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't care to argue about that. And this is what I believe, whatever. If you want to believe something else, it's like, whatever. And it was just fascinating to go through that. And it was so draining, even though I
Yes.
like kind of set it down and like turned away from it. It was still draining me.
It affects you. Yeah. And that's why I had to shut that one post down. And it was like, I certainly wasn't getting threatened or anything like that, but it was bothering me. And I'm like, no, this is not the goal of what I'm trying to do here. So,
Well, this is so cool. I don't usually get to have these kind of talks in the dental industry because most people are not focused on social media that way. So that's really cool that you're doing that. Is there anything else that I didn't ask you that I should have asked you?
I don't think so. I think we covered it. I just really want people to realize the importance of posture. It really is our foundation. And if we don't take care of ourselves, we cannot take care of anyone else.
100%. And how can people find you if they want to reach out?
So I'm on Instagram at stuff.PosturePros. I also have a website that has all of my resources on there. It's PosturePros.net, and I'm very receptive. I typically respond very quickly, and I'm just here to help.
Awesome. Follow me on Instagram, will you?
I will. Yeah, I'm going to do that right now. I was like, oh my God, I don't think I follow him. So I'm going to.
I didn't. Well, I pulled it up and I was like, oh, how am I not following her? So I followed you right away. So, and
Awesome.
then I'm like going
Thank
through
you.
your thing. I'm like, does she follow me? And I was like, okay, I'm going to ask her on air so she can't be mean and has to say yes to following me.
No,
So.
but I actually will. And I'll give you a review too. It sounds like you need some reviews.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out, I switched, last thing, and for people listening, they're probably bored with this already, but I switched from, I went to TikTok and I was doing a day in the life type content, and it was killing. Like people loved it. And now I've kind of switched. It was a lot of work though, because I had to like film all day and record and then compile
And
it
put them
and someone
together.
would edit it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was just like, I don't want to do this forever. Like, and I don't want to hire a video person following me around either. So I switched to podcasting and editing those, but they don't do as well. And so I'm trying to work on like getting those in. I don't like the trend. Like for me, I don't like the trends, and I don't want to like every time have to think about how do I fit this into the trend. So but I'm going to cut up this podcast and I'm going to give you the raws so that way you can play with them. And I would love to see how they do on your page versus my page because of the way you've built things out. So
Awesome. Yeah. Oh, I didn't realize that you were going to do that. Yeah, I'm excited. I kind of that's a creative part of social media that I really like is you can get just a little, artsy with that kind of stuff. So yeah, I look forward to that.
awesome. We'll give you like the breakdown of this is like on YouTube, but then we'll create the vertical videos and little clips from some of the spicier parts of our conversation.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was great having you on. Thank you for educating me. I literally learned a lot. I know besides, okay, I can't sit at a desk all day. I have to like walk. Outside of that, I don't know anything about this. So thank you so much for educating me and helping the audience.
Of course. Yeah. And thank you for having me. And seriously, I am impressed with your coordination that you can walk and work.
I can type.
I was on the treadmill earlier today and I'm doing this. This is totally off topic, but I'm doing this different workout to where you're doing like side shuffles on the treadmill. And I almost fell over like 5 times. I'm like, I don't know. So I'm very impressed.
I've gotten so good at like, I literally can do I can shoot a podcast and do it. I'm actually better. Like I'm more focused, but it's distracting if I'm walking like this, the whole podcast when they edit it.
You're
So that's the only time I don't walk during the day is when I shoot these podcasts. The rest of the day I'm walking. I walk 1.5 miles at an hour. And so I get about 5-6 miles in a day.
Holy cow. I was going to ask how many steps you have or that you get
10,
in a day.
About
Holy
10,000.
cow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Good job.
I always tell people I'm Disneyland ready.
Ready for anything.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks so much again. You have a great day. Okay.
Thank you, Gary. You too.
Bye-bye.